Hello everyone. Today we will discuss about ECG changes in acute myocardial infarction. What is meant by acute coronary syndrome? An acute coronary syndrome results from occlusion of the arterial flow to the myocardium. Depending on the degree of compromise of the flow, we can have ischemia, injury or necrosis. The occlusion occurs due to the ruptured plaque, the superadded clot on it and the spasm of the artery. Now if you see, there are a set of patients whom we call as stable angina. There are another set of patients whom we call as acute coronary syndrome. So we are not going to talk about stable angina today. Now when there is an artery which develops the plaque, when the plaque size is very small, the patient will be absolutely asymptomatic. When the plaque size slowly grows and the lumen is significantly compromised, he might develop chest pain during activities, during exertion. That we call stable angina. So he is not coming in an acute sick state, but he has pain once in a while whenever he exerts. However, there is a layer covering the plaque. Okay, we call that as a cap of the plaque or whatever. When the fibrous cap ruptures, when there is a rupture of the plaque, definitely that induces clot formation. Okay, the clot can be initially a small platelet clot that can subsequently add the red clot that can compromise the lumen significantly, and it can totally occlude the lumen. So when the lumen is totally occluded, so sudden total occlusion of the lumen causes ST elevation myocardial infarction. When somebody simply says acute MI, he refers to ST elevation myocardial infarction, which means there is a total occlusion of one of the coronary arteries, and in the total occlusion, partly it is because of the clot, partly it is because of the plaque. The percentage of clot and percentage of plaque cannot be determined based on the ECG or the symptoms. Somebody might have only 20 to 30% of plaque and rest 80% as clot, where somebody might have 70 to 80% as plaque and 20% as clot. Any combination is possible, but for the ST elevation myocardial infarction to occur, there should be total occlusion. On the other hand, if it is a subtotal occlusion, the clot whichever are formed, a small clot forms and it migrates to the peripheries, causes smaller infarction here and there, that will cause non-ST elevation myocardial infarction. Now how will you diagnose this non-ST elevation myocardial infarction? This patient and this patient might have same kind of symptom. They'll come with symptoms of chest pain, they can come with sweating, they can come with hypotension and whatever. But this patient will have ECG changes of ST depression, T inversion, but not ST elevation. Then how will you diagnose that he has myocardial infarction? Yes, these kind of patients, when we do enzymes, CPK, or troponins, which are called cardiac enzymes, if they are elevated, it indicates there is underlying necrosis, and hence we diagnose myocardial infarction. On the other hand, if another similar patient comes with same kind of symptom like these two individuals, in whom you did the myocardial enzymes but they are normal, that means he is not having any ongoing myocardial necrosis. So we call him as simple as unstable angina. So we have three patients who are having the same symptoms coming to us. In one there is ST elevation, we straight away call him as ST elevation myocardial infarction. In these two patients there is no ST elevation, there can be ST depression or T inversion, and we are sending cardiac enzymes for these two patients. In this patient, cardiac enzyme is normal, so we simply label him as unstable angina. In this patient, the cardiac enzymes are elevated, we label him as non-ST elevation myocardial infarction. Okay, now today we are going to deal only with ST elevation myocardial infarction. So what is the hallmark of myocardial injury? ST elevation. Why should we recognize this? Because it's very important for us to make the clinical decision of whether somebody will benefit from thrombolytic therapy or somebody should be subjected for an emergency PTCA, angioplasty, what we call as primary angioplasty. Now if you see here, when there is a subendocardial injury or partial thickness injury, because of the current of the injury is this direction, we get ST depression. Whereas when there is a transmural infarct or full thickness infarct, the current of the actual vector of the injury is this side, and hence we get ST elevation. One need not dwell much into it. If somebody wants to know the real mechanism, they go and read further on this. But if it is enough if you remember that when there is transmural injury, there is ST elevation, and for the transmural injury to occur, there will be a total occlusion of one of the artery. So the ST elevation should be measured from the upper edge of the PR segment, not the TP segment. So let me show you what is PR segment. So this is the ECG, this is P wave, this is the PR segment, and this is the QRS complex. Okay, what is J point? When the QRS complex joins with the ST segment, that junction is called J point. Now here J point is elevated. Just after the J point, 0.04 millimeter after the J point, you see how much is the ST elevation as compared to this PR segment. This is the degree of ST elevation, whether you want to call 1 millimeter elevation, 3 millimeter elevation, 5 millimeter elevation, everything is in relation to this PR segment. Now when to thrombolyze? Whenever there is significant ST elevation, which I will come to this subsequently, various thrombolytic trials have used various criteria. History is also equally important and more important in decision making, because the success of thrombolysis depends on how early we administer the drug. It depends on how early the patient reaches the hospital. Not only that, it depends on the gap between the onset of pain and the starting of the treatment. Suppose some patient has had a chest pain just 10 minutes back. He reaches the hospital within 15 minutes, and if you give the thrombolytic therapy, he is going to have excellent result. Suppose somebody had a chest pain for the past 4 to 5 hours and reaches to the hospital, and if you give thrombolytic therapy, his outcome is not going to be that good, because that clot would have been very much thickened and there would have been enough damage done to the myocardium. So the outcome doesn't depend exactly on the ST elevation. Of course, more the degree of ST elevation, more is the sick status of the patient. There is no doubt in that. But the ultimate outcome, whether somebody is going to benefit from thrombolysis or not, depends on the gap between the onset of pain and the starting of the therapy. Oh, when do you call a ST elevation a significant ST elevation? If there are more than 1 millimeter elevation in 2 or more limb leads, more than 2 millimeter ST elevation in 2 or more precordial leads. So there are two types of ST elevation. If you see here, there is an ST elevation here, but this is concavity is facing upwards. If you see here, it is convexity facing upwards. This convexity facing upwards is more suggestive of coronary artery disease than this concavity facing upwards. However, this does not rule out a coronary artery disease, especially when somebody has developed myocardial infarction. In the early phase, the elevated ST can still show a concavity, but subsequently it will become a convexity upwards. But if there is persistent concavity upwards, it might favor some other diagnosis like pericarditis. But however, any ST elevation in a patient with chest pain, our first diagnosis should be myocardium. Now if you see here, this is a myocardium, and there is a central zone of necrosis where the tissue is already dead. And surrounding the area, there is an area of injury. That means this area is really suffering and it's going to die soon. And periphery to that, there is an area which is ischemia. That means it's not dying, but the amount of blood is kind of deficient there. So the ECG can show all the three. That means if you have a Q wave that represents dead muscle, if you have ST elevation, that means that represents muscle which is having injury. That means this is the amount of muscle which we can salvage by thrombolytic therapy or primary angioplasty, and the T inversion shows the area of ischemia. So in a given patient, all the three can be there. So this is how it progresses. A normal ECG causes some ST elevation further worsens, and once you give the proper therapy, the ST elevation starts coming down, and at the time of discharge you can have T inversion, and after some time ECG become totally normal. For this to occur, we should have given the proper treatment at right time. Either thrombolytic therapy or primary angioplasty should have been done in right time for us to have this good effect. See here, preserved R is equal to preserved myocardium. If good amount of R is preserved in the territory which had myocardial infarction, that means good amount of myocardium is preserved. So this is yet another example. Normal ECG pre-admission with MI, there is ST elevation. After thrombolytic therapy, ST is coming down, but Q wave is forming. and you have a deep QS wave and some ST elevation at 24 hours. Though this ECG might appear as though the entire area is infarcted, it is not so. A QS or a deep Q doesn't mean that entire area is infarcted. There will be area of infarction, but surrounding area there will be area of preserved myocardium, which will improve with time. And if the thrombolytic therapy is done in right time, after 1 year we can have a near normal ECG. Okay, so now let us see how we use the leads in relation to the heart. So we have 1, 2, 3 AVR, AVL, AVF as limb leads. We have V1 to V6 chest leads. V1 and V2 are representing the septum, interventricular septum. The V3, V4 are representing the anterior wall of the left ventricle. V5, V6, lead 1 AVL, they represent the lateral wall of the left ventricle. 2, 3 AVF represent the inferior wall of the left ventricle. So if you see, all these things are in relation to the left ventricle. Okay, so all the areas, whenever I say anterior MI, inferior MI, lateral MI, everything I am talking in terms of the left ventricle. One should remember that interventricular septum is common to both ventricles, but it is more useful to the left ventricle, or its usefulness is more for the left ventricle than the right ventricle, normally in the. So this is a summary of the representation of the leads. Okay, V1, V2 septal leads, V3, V4 anterior leads, 1 AVL, V5, V6 as lateral leads, and 2, 3 AVF as the inferior leads. Many times we do see changes from V1 to V4. So we call that as anterior anteroseptal myocardial infarction. So one should know about the so-called reciprocal changes. We have electrically opposite leads. Okay, suppose in this patient, if there is an involvement of this part of myocardium and the vector of current injury is this way, this lead will record ST elevation. The diametrically opposite lead will record ST depression. This is called reciprocal changes. Okay, because in some lead you will see ST elevation, in some more leads you will see ST depression. You need not diagnose that there is a disease in two areas of the myocardium. It could be the disease in the single area of myocardium, but it is seen by two different leads in two different way. So for the anterior chest leads, generally there are no reciprocal leads because we don't place any leads at the back. Okay, but for lateral leads, inferior leads are reciprocal leads. Here again for the inferior leads, lateral leads are reciprocal leads. See, come to this point, posterior lead V7, V8 and V1, V2 are the reciprocal leads. See, in the previous slides, I discussed about anterior MI, inferior MI, lateral MI, isn't it? I didn't discuss about posterior MI. Suppose somebody has a myocardial infarction in the posterior aspect of the heart. Ideally, if we place our V7 and V8 leads at the infrascapular region behind, we will pick up the ST elevation. But commonly we do not do that, isn't it? Our total lead ECG stops at V6 level. So how can we diagnose that? Imagine that somebody has a posterior myocardial infarction and there will be ST elevation of the V7, V8 lead. The V1, V2 is exactly opposite or diametrically opposite to the V7 and V8. If there is ST elevation in V7 and V8, there will be ST depression in V1 and V2. So please remember this. Okay. So we are going to diagnose posterior myocardial infarction by looking at leads V1 and V2. So first we will come to anterior myocardial infarction. So this is the anterior wall. The artery, left anterior descending artery is blocked. This area of myocardium is dying. So conduction blocks can occur in anterior myocardial infarction like right bundle branch block, left bundle branch block or complete heart block. Anterior myocardial infarction coming with conduction block has a very bad prognosis. If somebody comes with complete heart block, nearly 90% will die. And if somebody comes with right bundle branch block or left bundle branch block, if you do not intervene, nearly 70 to 80% will die. If you see this ECG, there are ST elevation V1, V2, V3, V4. So we can call this as anteroseptal myocardial infarction. But if you see V5, V6 also is elevated and lead 1 AVL also is mildly elevated. So lot of leads are showing ST elevation. So this patient has anterior wall involvement, anterior wall involvement, septal involvement, and lateral wall involvement. We can call this as extensive anterior wall myocardial infarction or anteroseptolateral myocardial infarction. So whenever there is an anterior myocardial infarction, the artery involved is left anterior descending artery, and if there is a V1 involvement, if V1 ST elevation is present, there is osteoproximal segment disease of the left anterior descending artery. If the lesion starts from V2, predominantly see it from V2 to V4, that means it is mid-LAD involvement. And if only V5, V6 are the diagonal, if only V5, V6 is involved, it means the diagonal branch is involved. These patients where only V5, V6 elevation is there, there also will be changes in 1 and AVL. So let us come to inferior myocardial infarction. This is the inferior wall area which is infarcted. Okay, if the inferior wall is infarcted, we see changes in 2,3 AVF. That could be due to right coronary artery involvement or left circumflex artery involvement. We will see how to differentiate between the two subsequently. These patients also can come with conduction blocks, even complete heart block, and bradycardia is very common. Contrary to anterior myocardial infarction, conduction blocks in inferior myocardial infarction are generally transient and reversible, and they have a relatively good prognosis. Many a times it's because of the high vagal tone. Once the right coronary artery is opened up, vagal tone goes away and the conduction block also becomes normal. Many a times the AV nodal artery is blocked and that recovers, and hence even in the presence of conduction block, an inferior myocardial infarction generally has a better prognosis. See this ECG, there are ST elevation in 2,3 AVF, so it is inferior myocardial infarction. Now what's the role of right-sided ECG? You see, whatever we say inferior, anterior, lateral, we are referring to left ventricle eye side, isn't it? But the right coronary artery also supplies to the right ventricle. How do we diagnose? For us to diagnose right ventricular involvement, this V1, V2 is the usual lead placement. We should place additional leads in V3 and V4. If these additional leads V3 and V4, which are looking at the right ventricle here, if they show ST elevation, if V3, V4 shows ST elevation, then that means there is right ventricular myocardial infarction. Okay. You see this patient, these are V5, though it is written as V4, V5, V6, they are actually on the right side leads. This is V3R, this is V5R, and this is V6R. All these are showing ST elevation. So this very much confirms the presence of right ventricular myocardial. So whenever there is an inferior MI, how do we localize the vessel? If there is ST elevation in lead 3, which is more than lead 2, that means it is right coronary artery. Whenever there is a presence, whenever we have evidence of RV myocardial infarction, it is right coronary artery. If there are conduction blocks, again right coronary artery. So these are the three ways by which you can say a given inferior myocardial infarction is due to the involvement of the right coronary artery. On the other hand, if the ST elevation in lead 2 is more than lead 3, it is circumflex artery. And if there is ST depression in V1 to V3 in addition to inferior leads, then also it favors circumflex artery. So in this example, there is ST elevation in lead 1, AVL, V5, V6, which already we have discussed that these are the areas of lateral wall. So this is called as lateral wall myocardial infarction. When you have only these changes, involvement of the lateral, what is the localization of the vessel? So it could be either diagonal branch of the LAD, it could be obtuse marginal branch of the circumflex, or it could be ramus intermedius branch. Now let us come to the posterior myocardial infarction. See, the heart is seen from the posterior surface, and if there is a posterior myocardial infarction. So ST elevation will occur in the posterior leads V7 and V8, which we commonly do not take. So the mirror image of ST depression is seen in V1 and V2. The increased R amplitude and duration in V1. Basically, there will be increased R wave amplitude and duration in V1, what is called as pathological R wave, which is the mirror image of the pathological Q wave. Had we taken an ECG from behind, we would have seen a Q wave. That Q wave is seen as R wave in V1, and hence this V1, V2 tells us the involvement of the posterior wall. Okay, so again, this area can be involved either because of the right coronary artery or because of the left circumflex artery. One should remember that normally in about 80-85% of the individuals, this posterior descending artery is a branch of the right coronary artery. So whenever you have an inferior or myocardial infarction, there is 85% chance that it's going to be right coronary artery. In 15% of the individuals, the posterior descending artery is supplied by the circumflex artery, and hence there is a 15% chance that whenever you have an inferior MI is going to be a circumflex artery. But whenever there is a posterior MI, most commonly it is circumflex artery, because for the posterior MI to occur, there will be involvement of one of the obtuse marginal branch or the proximal circumflex artery should be affected for us to have posterior myocardial infarction. So this is a patient where there is a ST depression from V1 to V3 with clinically classical evidence of chest pain and other features. So this is a posterior infarction. Here we have ST elevation in 2-3 AVF and ST depression from V1 to V4. Again, another evidence of infra-posterior infarction. So posterior MI, the localization of the vessel is either circumflex artery or major OM branch. See, this ECG is very dangerous ECG. It's a 12-lead ECG showing ST depression everywhere. Unless you carefully look at V1 and AVR, you might miss the ST elevation. Okay, ST elevation is always more dangerous than ST depression. Now, whenever we have ST elevation in AVR and V1, that means the patient is in quite a sick status. That means he has left main coronary artery disease or he has osteoproximal left anterior descending artery disease. If the ST elevation in AVR is more than V1, it is suggestive of left main trunk disease. That means left main artery is involved. If the ST elevation in V1 is more than AVR, it could suggest osteoproximal LAD disease. Though this rule is not 100% accurate, many times it is true. Anyway, whenever there is an ST elevation in AVR and V1 and ST depression in other areas, that patient has to be immediately taken to the cath lab and the anatomy has to be studied. Accordingly, decision has to be taken. These patients at times should not be wasted in giving thrombolytic therapy or other medications. At times, this kind of ECG can be seen in patients who might have multivessel disease. That means all the three arteries are involved with multiple lesions. They also can at times show this kind of ECG. So this ECG is peculiar. We call it De Winter sign. What do we say whenever there is a total occlusion of an artery? We say ST elevation should be there. But here if you see, it starts as ST depression and then ST elevation and tall T waves are merging with each other. So starting with ST depression and then going as ST elevation, and see this typical ECG, okay, from here to here. This is called De Winter ECG. This should be treated as acute ST elevation myocardial infarction. The next ECG may show actually good ST elevation. Okay, so we would have picked him up just prior to the ST elevation. Again, here also, rather than thrombolytic therapy, this patient is better benefited by taking him to the cath lab and directly treating with angioplasty. So what are the things we should remember by this so-called ST elevation? ST elevation is due to the injury current from the myocardium due to acute occlusion of an epicardial coronary artery. Prompt recognition is important to decide on thrombolytic therapy or primary angioplasty. Okay, so if you miss the ST elevation, you will be treating only with heparin and other drugs, and hence you miss the chance of giving thrombolytic therapy or primary angioplasty, and hence in any patient you should look for areas where there is ST elevation. Sometimes I have seen in some patients there will be inferior or myocardial infarction, only 0.5 millimeter or 1 millimeter ST elevation in 2-3 AVF. But there might be prominent ST depression in 1 AVL, V4, V5, V6, which will catch our eyes, and we may be treating him as unstable angina mistakenly. So we have to look out for ST elevation. Depending on the leads, we should classify the MI as anterior MI, inferior MI or lateral MI as we have discussed. Posterior MI is recognized by ST depression in leads V1 to V3. So lastly, but very important, ST elevation in AVR could suggest involvement of the left main coronary artery, and hence these patients have to be subjected to the angiogram at the earliest. So hope you got a clear idea about interpretation of acute myocardial infarction related ECG. Okay, thank you.